When I came to the US in 1976, I wouldn't go around telling people I was Indian because they'd go, do you have snake charmers? Do you have cows running on the street? Today, 16 CEOs in the Fortune 500 who are Indian, like a Satya or Sundar. They employ and are responsible for 2.5 million high-paying jobs. 1 out of every 7 doctors is an Indian. The average income of the Indian diaspora in the US is $120,000.
Yeah.
It's 2.5 times that of an average American. We pay 6% of the taxes in the United States. Even today, people in our community get told, go home. I flew into JFK. I had $8 in my pocket. How welcoming this country was.
That was.
Was.
Why past tense?
Now, there are many ways to come here. The best way I would suggest today still is coming as a... Immigration is being made tougher and tougher by countries like the US because there's a 1976 and it was very different. There were maybe 10,000 Indians in all of Silicon Valley. There was one big seminal event that produced a flood of Indians to come to Silicon Valley, and that was called the... So they created this visa, right? The H-1B visa.
Yeah.
Probably 100,000 Indians came to Silicon Valley.
Wow. There's so much spoken about how immigrants feel. Those watching, if they do want to come to the US, what can they expect? If there's a little bit of a playbook for people who want to start up and scale in the US, what would it be?
First of all, let me give a reality set.
Okay.
Dark side of startups too. I have to kind of walk you through that.
What about for women?
For women, terrible.
Why would you say that is? Overall cultural impact, right, of India. We recently saw Kash Patel. He took his oath on the Gita.
Yes.
And that was it was phenomenal.
I described the India-US relationship like a marriage. There'll be ups and downs and bumps and fights. We should rename the show Humans of Silicon Valley.
Welcome to Humans of Bombay, Amar, or rather, you're welcoming me to California. So I'm just excited to be here and chat with you.
Awesome. We should rename the show Humans of Silicon Valley.
Okay, yeah. I have no objections with that name. Yeah. But I'm so excited because, you've really been there and seen the journey of what Indians were like when you came here to the US in 1982 to the evolution of what it is today, and what it means for Indians in the US to have jobs, to be a part of this thriving community. So I'm excited to chat with you about all of that. But let's begin a little bit about when you came to the US.
Okay. I came to the US in 1976.
1976? Okay.
Long time ago.
Okay.
But I came to Silicon Valley in 1982.
Yeah.
I came here as a usual immigrant, wanted to get my MBA. I got that. And then I was working in Houston for a while. And something happened in Houston that changed my life. One was, of course, I met my wife. But besides that, I was doing some training. And there was a consultant. And he asked me, what do you do? So I said, I have an MBA. I use computers. He says, what the heck are you doing in Houston, Texas? You should be in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
This was in 1982. And that made me start to think, right? Why am I in Houston in a dead-end job in a manufacturing company? This place called Silicon Valley looks amazing.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, that was 1982. There was no internet, no LinkedIn, no Facebook, no social media. There's no news of Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
So I had to do a lot of research, like going to a library. And I know your viewership are all young people, but there was something in the old days in libraries called a microfiche.
Yeah.
A microfiche was something where they actually copied documents and actually you were able to retrieve it, right? So I looked at the old newspapers from San Francisco and San Jose in a microfiche to find out what jobs they had.
Yeah.
Found a few. Wrote, typed out letters in those days, was typing a letter, sent it to a few companies, and one of them was crazy enough to hire me.
Wow.
Okay.
And how many Indians were there back then?
When I went to my company, we were about, I think, 50 people in the company. I walk in on the first day, I'm the only non-white. Okay. Not only Indian, but only non-white in the entire company.
Wow.
Okay. So that's how Silicon Valley was in 1982. There were a lot of orchards all over the place, fields. I mean, it was not like what you see today.
Yeah.
I mean, you could actually go pick oranges
Wow.
in those days, if you could believe it.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the environment I came in. And it was very different. There were maybe 10,000 Indians in all of Silicon Valley. Okay?
Wow.
I'll come to the number today a little later.
Yeah.
There were 10,000 of us. There were 2 Indian restaurants, 1 Indian bazaar. That's it.
Yeah.
So really, we were pioneers.
Yeah. And how did that evolution kind of happen in your own journey, right? Where you figured out that this is the place for you and that you want to build a life here and a thriving life here as an Indian who was doing it for probably the first time, right?
Absolutely.
And you didn't have a huge track record to track and say that, okay, this is the playbook of how it's done.
Yeah.
You were figuring it out on the fly. So what was that entire process like for you?
Yeah, again, I was like most Indians in those days. You came here to study. Then you want to do a practical training visa, get some experience. Then maybe you want to get a green card. And every time you think, I'll go home after the practical trial, I'll go home after the green card. And then it was after the citizenship, there's no going back, right?
Yeah.
That's the typical journey I went through as well. And the evolution was, basically what happened in Silicon Valley was, 10,000 Indians, most of them programmers, developing computer chips and stuff. Then the computer evolution went to the next stage, right? You had personal computers.
Yeah.
So then everybody moved to creating software, right? Once you did software, then there was the advent of the mini computer. Then you had something called client-server architecture, where you had software on your own personal computer and you have software somewhere else on a server, as they called it, right? So that happened. And with every step of the way, there are more people of Indian origin coming into Silicon Valley as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there was one big seminal event that produced a flood of Indians to come to Silicon Valley. And that was called the Y2K phenomenon.
Yeah.
When the world realized that in the year 2000, January 1st, 2000, all computer systems would stop or fail. There was a panic. So every company in Silicon Valley in the United States said, we got to get people to fix old systems, old computer mainframe systems. And those mainframe systems used an archaic language called COBOL, and maybe sometimes Fortran. And nobody in the United States knew those languages because they'd graduated to C++ and all kinds of other new languages, right? So they started looking around and saying, who the heck knows this language?
Yeah.
And they found, lo and behold, India was 20 years behind the United States. Because at that time, if you look in the 70s, India couldn't even import computers.
Yeah.
So somehow they'd scrounge up an old mainframe, bring it to India, and people would learn COBOL and Fortran. And so suddenly they found there were hundreds of thousands of Indians who knew this old language. So they created this visa, right? The H-1B visa, and brought literally thousands of Indians to come to Silicon Valley and all across the US to do COBOL retrofitting.
And that's how it began.
That was a big move, right?
Yeah.
I think at that time, probably 100,000 Indians came to Silicon Valley to do COBOL and Fortran programming, right? So that's what happened at that time. And that was a flood of Indians.
Hi guys, I hope you're enjoying the podcast, but I'm going to stop you here because I've noticed that so many of you watch our podcast but don't subscribe. So please pause this video here and go and hit that subscribe button because it really helps us grow. And with your support, we want to bring you many more fantastic conversations. Thank you. And with that, let's get back to the podcast.
At the same time, people like us who had kind of grown up in Silicon Valley moved up the ranks as well of companies, right? We started at the bottom level, then we moved up to be a manager, a director, a VP. And then suddenly we looked around and said, there's so many startups. We're not starting up anything. So a lot of us went and started companies, right? And so that happened at the same time you get these thousands of Indians coming to do COBOL programming. And it was a great intersection to get startup founders and programmers all together in this small confined space, right? And that's when the magic really started happening, where we ended up creating hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of software companies run by Indian entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And what about the immigrant tag, right? Like, when as you move through the list, which you mentioned that, okay, I'll do it after the green card and then I'll do it after citizenship. Throughout this journey, does this, there's so much on the internet, or there's so much spoken about how immigrants feel in places, not just in the United States, but anywhere in the world. How has that experience been for you? And for those watching, if they do want to come to the US, what can they expect?
So I'll tell you a story when I first came to this country. I flew into JFK and I had $8 in my pocket, right? So my brother who lived in the US, who had sponsored me, said, my friend's brother lives in New Jersey. So he'll come pick you up. Just imagine this, right? I have $8. I land at JFK, which is this crazy crowded airport. I get out and I'm supposed to meet this guy I've never seen before. He's never seen me before, right?
Yeah.
He found me. Right? I was thinking to myself, what if he hadn't found me? I had $8. I can't even afford a hotel room, right?
Yeah.
So, but he found me somehow. And then he sent me to my brother's house in upstate New York using something called the Greyhound bus. I don't think they exist anymore in the US, but I had to take a bus to go to my brother's place at that time because they didn't have an airport in the city. So I go there, and then my sister-in-law makes a big box of spices, all the spices I need. I'm a vegetarian, so she made sure I got all these things, right? Haldi and hing, and all the spices, put it in a nice box. And then I had to take another Greyhound bus to go to Cleveland, to my college, right?
Yeah.
So I take that bus and I have to change 2 buses too. I mean, it was the old days. So I end up in Cleveland. They open the trunk of the Greyhound bus and my box is missing.
Oh my God.
So I end up on college campus without my spices, pots and pans, right?
Yeah.
But in those days, every college had someone called a host family.
Yeah.
They would come and every international student would have one. So they came and saw me and told them the story. First thing, they went to the Kmart down the street. They bought me all the pots and pans and everything. It showed how welcoming this country was.
Yeah.
That's how the United States was in the old days. People welcomed you. They looked out for you. That's the experience I've had in my life, is that warm, welcoming America.
Yeah, but you said was.
Was.
Why past tense?
Now, fast forward, America has this challenge of legal immigrants and illegal immigrants, right? And that's really torn this country apart because a lot of people who came legally, and now there are a lot of people who come here without papers. So there's this whole view of people coming illegally, being able to cross the border, get asylum, get residency, get a stipend, be able to use all the public services. And so people who've already done that the legal way rightfully are asking how come they get preferential treatment. And so that has divided this country a lot these days. And that's why no one knows the difference between a legal immigrant and illegal immigrant on the street.
Yeah.
So how do you differentiate that? And that's caused a big problem.
Yeah. And do you think that it's become less welcoming over the years?
I think this issue has divided the country into, when you look at someone who's not like you, they may not know you're legal or illegal.
Yeah.
So people in our community, even today, get told, go home. And this could be my child who's born and raised in this country, an American citizen, suddenly hears, go home. They go, this is my home.
Where do I go?
Where do I go?
Yeah.
Right? So these kinds of things are happening now, and we need to defend against that.
Yeah.
And we need to educate and defend.
Yeah. So, we'll get into the weeds of the pros and the cons, but let's talk about the overarching scenario largely, which is that if you look at the CEOs of some of the largest companies in the world, they are Indian.
Yeah.
So whether that's Sundar Pichai of Google or Satya Nadella of Microsoft, Indians kind of lead these positions, at least Indian by, maybe not by where they're born, but just by nationality. How has that trajectory moved? And how is it that India has become this epicenter of talent that is scouted by pretty much everybody worldwide, and they choose to take these opportunities out of home?
So let me go back to this immigrant, challenge I told you about.
Yeah.
And that's why, I started this organization, nonprofit called Indiaspora. We, a year ago, realized there could be issues and challenges. So we worked in partnership with Boston Consulting Group, BCG, to document how the Indian diaspora has impacted this country positively, impacted the United States. One of those facts we brought out was there are 16 CEOs in the Fortune 500 who are Indian. But along with that, it's not just being a CEO, but the impact they make, these 16 CEOs make, like a Satya or Sundar, they employ and are responsible for 2.5 million high-paying jobs. So we want to always translate that success into impact.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of facts we have unearthed. by doing this report. Same thing with doctors. That's another community we should talk about. There's 75,000 Indian doctors in the United States.
Wow.
They serve 30 million Americans a year. 1 out of every 7 doctors is an Indian.
Yeah.
Whether it's a cardiologist or oncologist or general practice, they're servicing Americans, not just the Indian community.
Exactly.
30 million patients is who they serve. Same thing with academics. We have 22,000 professors in the US at all the colleges. They teach 3 to 5 million college students a year. This is the kind of impact that this community that you said, the CEOs and others, have on the United States.
Yeah.
We are 1.5% now. I mean, fast forward from 10,000 people those days, right? Silicon Valley today has 400,000 Indians. So we've done a 40x multiplier in 40 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the kind of success we've had, but we need to show the impact, right? So this community is now 1.5% of the United States population. We're about 5 million, right? But we pay 6% of the taxes in the United States. So this is a wealthy community that pays an unfair share of the taxes, and rightfully so. You know,
Yeah.
that's the tax law, you have to pay your taxes. But that's the kind of impact we have.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, you look like someone who does yoga. I mean, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Okay. There are 36,000 yoga studios in the US. And I would venture to say that's more yoga studios than India.
In India. Yeah.
Okay. So these are people. We're giving wellness and mindfulness and spirituality to all of America as well.
Yeah.
So that's the wealth that this community has brought to this country.
Absolutely. And when it comes to these top leadership
Yeah.
positions, right? What is it that draws this in both ways? Like from the company's perspective, that Indians actually do
Yeah.
have the mettle to drive these large, almost $1 trillion companies, to the leaders who are leading in terms
Yeah.
of opportunity to take it. Like this question comes up often as to why would they not deliver that kind of impact at home in India, which is also such a large, growing, thriving economy.
Right. So one thing, I think these people came here and studied here, kind of got into life here and got assimilated into society in the United States. I think that's helpful. But I think they also became professional managers. Most of the 16 were not entrepreneurs. They're professional managers who grew up in their companies.
Yeah.
You look at a Satya or Sundar, they were really managers who moved up. But I think they brought qualities with them from India. One thing is hard work, education, being highly educated was another one. The family values they brought, and also ambiguity, right? India is an ambiguous country. No, there's no black and white, it's all gray. A lot of things in India are gray. So when you're a CEO, you need to deal and straddle with that kind of thinking and decision making, right?
Yeah.
It's not all black and white. You kind of got to be in that gray area in India, like we say, adjust, right?
Yeah.
And that quality also serves them well. So I think it's the DNA of being Indian and having this Indianness in them that has stood them in good stead to move up and run large, complex organizations.
Yeah, absolutely. So when people are contemplating the decision today, the US is the big dream. It's the American dream for a reason. Whether they do want to come into the United States, either to study or in a more permanent fashion, like you were mentioning, what would your opinion be on should they, and if they should come, what would the process be, or is it better to stay at home and kind of build the economy back home?
I mean, people need to know things have changed. They have become more difficult. When I came, I had a practical training visa on my first job. I got my green card as part of that, literally in the same time frame.
Wow.
So there was no H-1B status or anything. You just got your training visa and then you got your green card, right?
Yeah.
So that doesn't exist pretty much. But there are options of doing many different things to get into this country, right? But you have to understand the landscape of the United States. There are many ways to come here. The best way I would suggest today still is coming as a student, okay? Still coming in as a student so that you've learned to assimilate into the culture, into the lifestyle and so forth in the United States, okay? So that would be the number one option for someone to come in and then see if you can get a job. And then within the time frame of that, you can get into a different kind of visa. So there are pathways to doing that, and you need some legal help and assistance. So there are ways to come, but I would say come as a student, because you may or may not like it here, right? But in general, across the world, immigration is being made tougher and tougher by countries like the US, like Canada, like UK, Australia, and others, because there's a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment in many countries throughout the world.
Yeah.
And so we have to be cognizant of that. But there's still, if you really want to come, this is the place to be. The American dream is still alive in a different way. It's not, the old American dream was you buy a house, you have 2.2 kids, a dog, and a yard, and a white picket fence, and all that stuff. But today's world, the dream is different. And still, America, I think, affords you be what you want to be, try what you want to try. If you fail, you try again. All those qualities and values still exist in the US, but it's gotten more challenging. And for anyone in India who still wants to come, my mother always told me, where there's a will, there's a way. You'll find a way. I mean, and you'll find a way not to do it, but you'll also find a way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. When people are making these decisions, though, right? The biggest factor is like it's too far away from home. Right. Obviously, it's miles away from home, but you've managed to create a community right here. Yeah. How helpful has that community been, and what are some of the challenges that you've solved as part of being in that community, the leader of that community?
Yeah. So it's changed, right, dramatically between 10,000 to 400,000 people and stuff. So when you come here today, there's literally an Indian restaurant in every corner.
Yeah.
The Indian grocery stores is. DoorDash will deliver Indian food to you. So all that has been simplified quite a bit, but you still need a community that you are part of. And that's why at Indiaspora, one of the communities we're creating is called Indiaspora Next, which is for the next generation, the younger set who comes here. They don't have friends. They don't know where to live. They don't know where to go. You still need that physical connection. Yeah. And that's something we are striving to develop on a formal basis is that very community, which is welcoming. We also have a mentoring program now to mentor young startup founders who come here. So we need to do a lot more, and that's what Indiaspora is working on, is to formalize a lot of these programs to help the next set of leaders come in from India and make them feel at home, help them not just with money, but with introductions, with other ways to support them. Yeah.
Samar, let's talk about the startup world. I mean, you've been there when it was just about starting and exploding to now where it's like thriving, right? And every Indian, there are so many Indians who want to start up. They want to make it big. They want to scale. Talk to me a little bit about that evolution. And if there's a little bit of a playbook for people who want to start up and scale in the US, what would it be?
First of all, let me give a reality set.
Okay.
The first company I came to in Silicon Valley in 1982 was a startup.
Okay.
We had 50 people. First year, it doubled in sales. Second year, it doubled in sales. We all felt good. Third year, it went bankrupt.
That's a startup.
That's a startup. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even know. At that time, there was no word for startup. When I came in 82, it was just a company. Now they call them startups. So that was my first experience with a startup. It was a failure. Then I went to a large company, Oracle. Okay, I worked there. It was great, but I wanted to go do a startup again, right? Yeah. So I went to my second startup. Same thing, that had like 25 people. It doubled and doubled. 3 years later, it went bankrupt. Maybe there's a pattern with me going to a startup and going broke in 3 years.
You're the common thread.
Yeah. And it's 3 years. Everything is 3 years.
Yeah.
Did that. So then I went to a third startup and I got lucky. I was part of the management team. Helped take them public. The stock went up like crazy. That's the third time. So the lesson here is you got to try again. Yeah. Not everybody is going to crack it on the first startup.
Yeah.
I know people who are on their fifth startup. Okay, they have the passion and desire to keep doing it. Do it, but don't go crazy. Yeah. I have a friend, for example, looking at the dark side of startups too. I have to kind of walk you through that. He is now a senior citizen. He's taken out his retirement money and put it into a startup. That's a no-no. Okay, that's craziness. But that's the fever you get when you do startup. The startup fever happens and you'll blindly keep doing it. So my advice to people who want to do a startup, do it when your financial risk is the least, which is hopefully when you're single or you're newly married. Do it at that time rather than, when you have kids going to college and you have tuition fees and all this. Be careful with your cash flow and all that a little bit before jumping in, but it's best to do it when you're younger, when You don't have that big mortgage payment or any of that stuff. So do it wisely, but also come into it knowing you may have to try a few times. Okay, it's
Correct.
not going to happen in your first time. But having said all that, I would do my startups all over again. And even if my third one didn't hit, I would probably be on my sixth one.
Yeah, yeah. And what about scale, right? Like you were telling me
Yeah.
offline that 72 Indian American startup founders run unicorns in the
Yes.
US. That's a tremendous number. So, what about scalability and people who are looking to kind of really make it a legacy company or a company that really makes and drives that impact?
Yeah, it's an amazing journey Indian Americans have had here because they've done startups and there's 72 of them. And more importantly, they employ 88,000 people.
Right.
Again, high paying jobs,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, these people are not only creating wealth, they're creating jobs.
Yeah.
And I think it takes, it's easier to do it now because of the ecosystem. There are
Right.
400,000 of us in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
So if you have a startup in Silicon Valley, you can go, for example, the Fortune 500 companies have about 100 CIOs, CTOs, and CXOs in these companies.
Yeah.
So you have that connection to go into a large company and find that Indian executive who's willing to give you a chance, not necessarily do a deal with you,
Yeah.
but at least they give you a shot. They
Yeah.
know you're Indian, you work hard, they've checked you out, and they can do that. So keep in mind, all these things are what helps scale
Yeah.
these companies. And now the other thing that I didn't mention was in the VC community. A lot of the successful VCs are Indians. And even in that list, a lot of them on the Midas list,
Yeah.
which is the top 100 successful investors. You look at it, there are probably a lot of Indians on that list. So it's not only in the startup scene, it's in the angel investing scene, as well as in the venture capital space, the Indians galore
Yeah.
across the board, right? And you've seen some of the exits happen, like Jay Chowdhury at Zscaler. You know, he's had an unbelievable, he started 5 companies, and all 5 companies have either been acquired or gone public,
Yeah.
right? And now he's running Zscaler. It's worth, I don't know, 30, $40 billion in market cap. So there are so many examples and role models that we can follow even in the tech industry, which should inspire these young entrepreneurs. So I would say, even though it's hard, this is the best time to do a startup.
Yeah. And do you find that it's easy, not easy or neutral when it comes to Indians raising funds in the United States?
I think it's easy because we have a good reputation of starting companies, working hard, making it successful. So we have a track record. You know, you can look at so many Indian companies getting acquired, and hopefully some more going public. Like a company called Rubrik has gone public recently.
Yeah.
There are many more waiting to go public, right? So I think it bodes well as an Indian to come and fundraise. First of all, the angel network is very strong. There's so many Indian executives who have been successful, who are willing to invest.
Yeah.
In fact, I invested recently in an Indian founder.
Really?
Yes. So this is happening quite frequently. So I think it's a good system. It's a good time to do it.
And what about for women?
For women, terrible. I mean, I don't want to mince words.
Yeah.
I think, you know, there was a traction and trajectory where more and more companies being run by women were funded. More and more women were becoming VCs. Unfortunately, that trend has stalled.
Why would you say that is?
I think it's just the political climate now as well is giving people pause on a lot of issues today in the United States. So I think this needs to be cleared up. But I would say a woman wanting to start a company in the US was hard. And unfortunately, it's getting harder.
What would your advice be?
Advice is, again, you know, just persevere, blow open doors, get more meetings, get more people on your side.
Yeah.
I mean, many of us, the good thing about Indiaspora is we love to mentor and sponsor women. 1/3 of our members at Indiaspora are women. So we still have a very soft corner for that.
Yeah.
But there are many groups like that who will help you. In our community, there's an organization called Naitri, which is a professional women's organization. So there are many avenues within the Indian community in the US that can be helpful. Don't give up.
Yeah. What is the number that you said? You said that it was 2%?
The last I heard was 2% of deals funded were women founders.
Yeah.
Although the number for Indians, so maybe Indian women founders are a higher number because number of deals being funded that are Indian led are more like 20 or 30%. So there's
that.
Being Indian has some magic to it. I don't know if being Indian woman has that kind of magic.
Yeah, it's interesting data to kind of pour over.
It is.
What about the overall cultural impact, right, of India? We recently saw Kash Patel. He took his oath on the Gita.
Yes.
And that was it was phenomenal, right? Walk me through the subtler nuances of this.
So my generation was born in India, and we represent about 60% of Indian Americans. The other 40% are like my kids. They're born in the US. So they're born in the US, they have Indian values, they've been to India, they have relatives in India, grandparents in India, and so forth, but they are American. They're born here, they're 100% assimilated into this culture. So they have their own aspirations, own values. So they are quite different than my generation, right?
Yeah.
So I think we need to be aware of that. And this generation is much more American. So they're not all becoming doctors and engineers. Okay? They're trying out. They're becoming ballet dancers. They're becoming athletes. They're getting into public service. Public service is a big calling for our community because one quality of Indianness that I forgot to mention earlier is seva, or selfless service. So a lot of our next generation Indians are getting into public service. They're working in Washington, D.C., or for politicians or for state governments, earning a pittance in salary because they want to give back in their own way. They want to make an impact on the country.
Right.
So there's, in fact, in the Biden administration, the previous administration, there were over 150 people in senior positions and hundreds of others in lower level positions. Same thing in the prior administration of Obama. So if you see the chart of Indians in public service, it's going 45 degrees to the right. And now in the Trump administration, there's so many Indians like Kash Patel, Jay Bhattacharya, who heads up the NIH, many more Indians coming into incredible leadership, and also hundreds of Indians joining the administration in other lower level positions as well. So that bodes well for not just Indian Americans, but for India as well.
Yeah.
Because when Prime Minister Modi comes, he's going to be interacting with not just Americans, but some of the Indian Americans in the administration. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. So what's the overarching future of India and America looking like?
I think it's very, very positive. I think you look at every president, it's gone to new heights. Starting with George Bush, who did the nuclear proliferation treaty, to every president subsequent to that, who's done more and more and more with India. So I don't think it's got to be Republican doing more, Democrat. They're all going to do a lot more. And we are two democracies. When you look around the world today, you know, these are the two best democracies. One is the oldest, one is the biggest. So it makes sense to work together. We've had a long relationship. Now we have 5 million Indian Americans cheering on this relationship, helping in this relationship, and doing a lot more. So I think it's going to be very positive. There'll be, like I described the India-US relationship like a marriage. There'll be ups and downs and bumps and fights, but overall it's going to be a marriage and it's going to be okay.
Yeah. What's the sentiment of Indians here about our Prime Minister, Narendra Modi ji, at home?
Yeah, I think when I came in 1976, I wouldn't go around telling people I was Indian because they'd go, do you have snake charmers? Do you have cows running on the street? People here had a very different perspective on India and Indians in general.
Yeah.
Now that sentiment has changed completely to where when they meet an Indian, they say, you must be a smart techie, you're a doctor, you're a professor, right? That whole perspective and sentiment has changed in one way. Also, at the same time, India has become very successful. And the Prime Minister has really formed a relationship with us. 10 years he's been in office. He comes here every year. He meets with Indians. He does large-scale events with the community. And he courts us. And rightfully so, because we have become successful. India is rising. So it makes so much sense for the two communities to get to know each other, to do more with each other, right? So it's become a very positive relationship. And the other thing is that the Indians in the US, last year, the Indians in the US remitted $26 billion to India. And this is not remittances like which come from the Gulf countries, where people working there send money for their families. This 26 billion is to invest in real estate, buy homes and apartments, is to invest in startups, invest in the stock market. This is investment capital coming in.
Wow.
So you can see the Prime Minister's visits are paying rewards,
Yeah.
and they're getting investments.
Yeah. And let's talk about the Indiaspora and how this community has played a role in fostering these relationships, also just from a community perspective, right? Like you were mentioning earlier that you yourself invest, but having that thought at the back of your head that you're in a foreign country, but you have a slice of home,
Right.
like Indiaspora behind you, is such a comfort.
Yeah.
So walk me through how Indiaspora's role has also evolved over time.
Sure. Again, I can only contrast with what happened before,
Yeah.
right? Is in the old days, we had organizations that were siloed. You'd have the Gujarati Samaj, the Tamil Sangam, and then you had an organization like TIE, which only worked with entrepreneurs, right? So we didn't have many choices. So when we started Indiaspora, I had this vision in 2012 to start a community that was all inclusive.
Yeah.
So we wanted doctors and lawyers and academics and VCs and CEOs and startup founders all coming together to be a force for good.
Yeah.
So right from day one, it was to bring seva and helping each other as the core value of a community, and all inclusive, right? So that's how we started it. And quickly, within a year, I found 100 other like-minded people who all wanted a community like this.
Yeah.
So the test of it was, again, being a founder, you're a founder, so you can appreciate this. As a founder, you come up with crazy ideas. So this is the idea I had when I started Indiaspora. I told these 100 people, I'd met some of them I've talked to them on the phone or by email. I invited all of them, all in the US, to fly to New York, to JFK. At those days, there was no Uber, so they all had to rent cars and drive up 3 hours to the middle of upstate New York and end up in a hotel that was a 100-year-old hotel and spend a weekend with me. Okay. I didn't know what I was thinking, but 95 of them showed up.
Wow.
It showed that they were all excited, interested in starting a new community.
Yeah.
Looking back at it, I don't know if I'd have done that crazy kind of adventure, but they showed up and they all said, let's do it.
Yeah.
And that's how we started Indiaspora, right? Is we wanted to be active in public service. We wanted to do philanthropy. We wanted to give back and help young people. And that was the premise of the organization then. And in the past 13 years, it's grown from a Silicon Valley type organization to all across the US. And we've included so many people into it. We've gone to other countries. We're now in the UK, Canada, Singapore, UAE, Australia, and even in India.
So there's an Indiaspora
There's
in
an
India?
Indiaspora in India.
Okay.
And these are people like you who are Indians, but they keep in touch with the diaspora, so they
Yeah.
want to be part of that community,
Yeah.
right? So we have people in India who are very interested in the diaspora as well. So it's now become a global community. But what does this community do, right? It's one, to help each other, but we also have to have purpose. Like we have to give back, and we have to give back in a tangible way, right? We have to, this morning, for example, before this podcast here in San Francisco, I was with the Indian community here, feeding homeless people in San Francisco this morning.
Yeah.
And we gave out 100 meals in less than 45 minutes. There's hunger even in this country. And we have to give where we live. We have to give back to the cities where we live. So that is purpose for us. We got to, feed people here. We got to take care of senior citizens who live here. That's all part of Indiaspora's mandate, right? Is one thing. The other thing is we also have to take care of people in India.
Yeah.
So during COVID, the Indiaspora community in 1 month raised $15 million for relief in India. And we sent it to different NGOs in India to take care of migrant workers who are walking home with no food, to people who are cremating their people who had died and they had no income. We were giving money to them, all kinds of causes, right? This is what our community is rich. The average income of the Indian diaspora in the US is $120,000.
Yeah.
It's 2.5 times that of an average American. With that income comes responsibility, as I tell people. You got to give even more.
Yeah.
The Indian community here this year we'll give $2 billion to philanthropic causes.
Wow.
But that's not enough. They should give even more.
Yeah.
And then on a more humorous basis, we work, like I said, with the next generation. And one of the things that has happened in the Indiaspora communities is marriages have happened in Indiaspora. So I go, forget Seema auntie. We can do a better job than her in making marriages happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So tell me a few examples.
Yeah, we've had a couple who got married. Now I got to tell you this incident. So we did a webcast during COVID with some of Seema auntie's clients. So we brought them on, and there was this guy. We felt sorry for him. He was from Austin, Texas. He was a school teacher. He was trying to get dates, and he got dates, and he always kept getting rejected. So we had him and the producer come on stage. And then I brought a couple who got married at Indiaspora on the show. And so this guy ended up asking this couple for advice. He's like, how did you guys meet? How did you date? How did you get married? So it was hilarious. So it just happens organically. We don't have a dating club or Indiaspora.shadi.org or something, but it does happen. Yeah.
But you should do it. I think that is an added deeper layer. That not only do we have you covered holistically, but we really want you to form your roots and find a life partner.
Absolutely. We want to help and we want to get a commission like Seema Auntie does. We are a non-profit.
She's making bank.
I know. We are a non-profit. We need money. We'll do anything. But those are the things that happen in a community, right? It's not just about giving and sharing, but all these relationships being formed. And so, I've seen this over 13 years and it's a great journey.
Indians have this amazing and unique capability of really banding together whenever the occasion calls for it.
I'll tell you that. Before I went to inaugurate this first forum, which is our Davos, our TED, that's kind of the spirit we had. Before that, I decided I had to do something to make sure it was successful. So I flew from San Francisco for 23 hours to go to the Kumbh Mela. Okay? And I spent 24 hours there. And seeing the spirit of the people there, there was nobody who was angry. There was nobody who was pushing and jostling. Everybody was helping each other. And the day I took my dip, 10 million people took their dip. And I was like, my God, and everybody...
It's incomparable.
Was
the energy,
coexisting. And I said, this is an India I'd never seen, that what India is changing to become, right? When you can have that happen, that was like a surreal experience. Right? It was exhausting, but it was exhilarating. It was surreal. And, I did that to make sure my conference would succeed as well.
Well, Amar, you're 23. I'm sure it was not exhausting.
Absolutely. 23 hours. Then I had to go on an electric rickshaw to get into town. And then to go to the Ghat, I had to take a motorcycle. As a pillion rider, I didn't even have a helmet. I was like at the mercy of my scooter driver.
You go there. See, that's what you make it eventually.
It was great. I loved it.
So, and I think that these kind of events also do put India on the map, right? Like the fact that over and above everybody in India and people like yourself who went to this event thinking that it is once in a lifetime, there were people like Steve Jobs' wife who went and took the dip. There was Chris Martin in Dakota Johnson who went and took a dip. It's truly global, and it puts India on that pedestal, right, on that map.
Absolutely. When you get 500 million people to show up within a month and take a dip and go home and everything goes, it was slow, but that's okay. When I saw people walking on the street and I was in a car and my car was stopped, it's okay. I'm fine. I'm not angry. I'm not, doing anything. So it was beautiful. That moment was, I think the moment for this year was how India was able to get 500 or 600 million people to do this and relatively safe.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if one does want to apply to the Indiaspora to be a part of the community, how do they do that? Because now there's like an added incentive. People are going to be like, I'm going to find my life partner there. Forget everything else.
So we have a couple of networks. We, if you're not in the young group, you can join Indiaspora formally as a member. We have a process. We do an interview. We make sure your goals and our goals and values are aligned, and you can join the organization. If you're a young person, like I said, we're starting this Indiaspora next. You can apply to that program and we'll get people together. So there are many ways. And then we have a bigger community, right? So we do virtual events. We've done events around women empowerment, around taking care of your kids. We're going to do one on, heart health,
Yeah.
because Indians are more prone to heart disease than other communities. And in every area, we're finding so many talented people. For example, we're going to do this heart webcast in a month. We have so many people who are top cardiologists and surgeons who are all saying, hey, we'll come on the show.
Wow.
We don't have to really go looking for people.
them.
In any area we can, whether it's climate or health, we have people.
Yeah, we have people. Indians have people.
Indians have people.
That's our USP.
We can call, and they all use WhatsApp.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Do you use WhatsApp?
We're the leaders of WhatsApp University. So we'll add the links down below so that people can apply and make their way to this amazing community. But thank you so much, MR. It's been such a fascinating conversation. I'll end and close with your last thoughts on the way forward, the future, and what can people who are watching be excited about in terms of India and the US?
Yeah, I think the main thing I'd ask people to do is, a lot of people think and they talk, but they never do. And my slogan is simple. Everything I've done, I follow the Nike slogan, just do it. Yeah. So if you have an idea or you have something, don't wait. Most people tend to think and they don't act, and they don't do. So I would leave young people and even older people like me with that decision. If you haven't done something, just go do it. Yeah. Just do it. You may succeed, you may fail, but at least you don't go away saying, I didn't try. So I would definitely use that as parting words. And also, thank you for coming to San Francisco and seeing my hometown and experiencing Indian-American life.
Yeah, I really feel so many elements of India here. So it's beautiful, and thank you for having me. And hopefully this gives a lot of perspective of what's what.
Thank you as well.
Thank you. Thank you for being the best community, and we'll see you in the next one.